Strange, odd, unorthodox, eccentric, peculiar.
Queer. Queer as a $3 bill. It's been a euphemism for us, a slur against us, and everything in between, and we wear it with pride. We are $3 bill cinema. Hello, cuties and beauties, and welcome to the $3 Bill Cinema Podcast. I'm Jolene, and I'm a board member with $3 Bill Cinema, a nonprofit dedicated to bringing all things queer and cinema to the Seattle area, and now, beyond. Every year, we unleash upon an unsuspecting public the Seattle Queer Film Festival and our Trans Film Festival Translations, which for this year, we are combining into the Seattle Queer and Trans Film Festival. But seeing all of you at festivals just isn't enough for our taste, so here we are. We're going to talk about a queer film, we're going to interview the newly elected president of the board of directors, and we're going to just generally be gay and goof off. Enjoy. So today, we're going to be talking about a lovely piece of queer cinema that my 90s heart just exploded for, having never ever seen it. Despite the fact that it was at the top of every staff picks section of every video store I ever went to, like all the way through like probably the end of video stores. You can find us at Insta and Facebook at $3 Bill Cinema, spelled out THREEDOLLARBILL Cinema. You can also find us at that same place on TikTok, on Blue Sky, and YouTube. You can find us at the number $3 Bill Cinema. Remember to like and subscribe, all that good stuff that keeps this thing going. Before we begin, tell us about you.
Hi, I'm Sloan. I use he, they pronouns. My favorite bean is the kidney bean.
This is an important consideration for our audience, is your bean preference.
Just thought it would be cool to watch movies.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah. I just want to watch movies and talk about it.
I am Jolene. I am a third-generation film projectionist. At least I was before that stopped being a job. At which point I went and got myself a production degree and then did nothing with any of that until basically right now. You can see from the fraying edges around our chroma key, I wasn't very good to begin with. Which brings us to today's movie. We are going to talk about Party Monster. Based on the memoir Disco Bloodbath by James St. James, Party Monster is the true-ish story of St. James, played by Seth Green, and Michael Olick, portrayed in this flick by Macaulay Culkin, as they adventure through New York's club kids scene in the early to mid-90s. As their lifestyle becomes increasingly reckless and hedonistic, the consequences naturally catch up with them, or there would be no film. Excuse the interruption, Editor Jolene here. This film touches on rather a lot of sensitive topics, and so too does our discussion. While this is not a comprehensive list, those who'd prefer not to hear about sex, drugs, violence, or any other potentially triggering content, consider this your off-ramp. In addition, the views expressed here are solely those of their respective performers and are not necessarily the opinions of $3 Bill Cinema. Enjoy the rest of the show. So normally when I film something like this, I know the movie way more intimately than I do Party Monster. That would be you. You know this movie backwards and forwards, and I do not. So I am challenging you, and I'm going to put a timer on the screen, and maybe even a very irritating ticking sound that you thankfully don't have to hear. And you have 1 minute to give us the blow-by-blow of the events of Party Monster. If you have not seen the movie, pause this, go watch the movie, come back, because from here on out, spoilers beyond this point. Go!
Basically, Macaulay Culkin's character goes to New York just on a whim and meets James St. James. And he has big dreams of making it huge in New York. And so James St. James shows him the ropes. And Michael very quickly takes over the party scene in New York and creates this big queer cult following for himself and his events that he throws. And he gets addicted to drugs. All his friends are on drugs eventually. He's just surrounded by debaucherous people who continue to keep him in this vicious cycle of bad behavior and bad choices. And he loves it. He's like very much like a psychopathic character, like very like
Literally so. Like we're not just
Yeah.
being flippantly ableist right
no,
now.
he is clinically like psychotic, like a psychopathic individual. And then eventually, the film takes a very dark turn, as does the actual story of Michael Alec, and he kills one of his boyfriends
For the crime of not having enough drugs.
Yeah, who he turned into a drug dealer, and he kills him in a like not just like a violent crime of passion, but in a very brutal way. At the end of the film, it shows James St. James like finishing his book, and Michael calls him when he's in the middle of an interview, and is like, "Oh my gosh, what are you up to?" And then James St. James is like, "I just finished writing the story of how I turned you in."
Time! You nailed it.
You were talking about how you had like different topics and stuff that you want to talk about. So like, what do you think we should start with?
Gay!
It's gay. It's a gay movie. At the very least, queer. It is a capital Q queer movie, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What I want to you're new to this film, so tell me what you think.
One, Macaulay Culkin has never been cuter.
Oh yeah.
Ever. And I think he was one of my first crushes. I can't remember if it was him or Elijah Wood.
Oh yeah.
Which is weird because like I didn't even know I was into boys, and I didn't know that's what it was. I didn't know it was a crush, but like clearly that's what it was.
We were also talking about how we noticed that like a lot of like the queer representation in the movie was just very like casual and wholesome. Like this movie is dark and scary, but the actual queer behavior in it is never like demonized. Them being queer people is not the focal reason why things go wrong in the film.
There isn't like a beginning of the movie where they're all like straight and then they discover being gay and that leads to drugs and that leads to murder. Like, and they could very easily have gone that way. Movies love to do that shit, and I'm so happy that this movie was just, no, they've been awful the whole time. They started out awful. You're gonna watch them get awfuler as time goes on.
Honestly, James St. James gets better.
He does. He does.
He like grows as a person. He like cares about the people around him more. Like he's still like, you know, a little rich party kid who's like addicted to coke.
And boy, howdy is he addicted to coke. Seth Green does coke nose through the entire movie.
I know.
I need to talk about their voices. I have to. Okay, because it took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out that like, oh, that's not the characters doing an affectation. That's the actors doing an affectation. That is how these characters are meant to speak 24 hours a day.
Stick with me, Angel. I'll make you a superstar.
They're not just like, oh yes, oh I do believe, putting on a voice to do a character. Have you encountered that voice in real life?
I have run into people who just talk like that. Like that is just like very high society, Upper East Side, like snobby, white trash, rich people talk. Like it's a thing.
Do they do it because their parents do it, or like do they do it because all their friends do it? Is that like something where you speak
I'd say
otherwise normally, and then you like go to school or meet all your you meet your friends and they talk like that?
I would say it's probably like a both thing. Like usually in situations like that, they're in like areas of their city where a lot of people just act and speak and behave like that. It was definitely a thing that was way more prevalent in the 90s. It's still like a thing today.
No shit.
Yes.
Okay, like and I was just happy that the voice that they were doing is not the stereotypical like gay best friend, the oh girl, oh the voice I'm talking about is a real voice that like gay people do. Part of that I needed to have explained to me as a child is like some of that is just you'll meet a little kid and he talks like that, like even though nobody in his family does, it just happened naturally.
Yeah.
And some people pick it up as an affect to just be like, yeah, I'm queer. So it's not that nobody does it, but I hate that movies always do it, and it's always like straight actors doing that voice.
Seth Green is at least fruity.
Like, like most queer cinema, like the biggest piece of trans representation on film is a cis woman playing Brandon Tina.
I feel like at the very least, Seth Green is a and if that's not okay to say on the podcast, you can like put like a over that.
I will. Next up in gay, the outfits in the movie get progressively more scandalous as we go.
And weird.
And I super loved it because it wasn't just like, let's show more skin. It was like, let's get progressively artier and stranger as we go.
Yes.
And I loved it dearly. It did remind me of the kink at Pride debate, which happens every year, every single year. There is no level of acceptable queerness that will make the people that you're trying not to offend not offended. They're just offended by queer people.
His wardrobe gets more inappropriate and kind of thoughtless. And it contrasts so much with the severity of the situations that continue to escalate as the film goes on.
Yeah, that it all had meaning. It wasn't just like, let's collect a bunch of weird shit and throw them in it randomly throughout the movie. Like, it all seems to be very purposeful. Lastly, under the gay subhead, the ending phone call. So you mentioned this earlier. Michael calls James St. James from prison, where James tells him, you know, yeah, I'm the reason that you're in there. Yeah. That was me. And they don't, like, break up over it. They don't, like, oh, fuck you forever. Like, it's just like, oh, you bastard! You got me arrested for murder, you scamp!
I have actually had so many queer friends who behave like this. I don't know if it's just where I'm from. I know out in Seattle, people play the snip snip game a lot, where it's just...
We lived right out of each other's lives.
We're done. This movie is set in New York, but I know that for myself and my own personal experience, I have run into so many queer people who are in either situationships or friendships or full-on relationships where they do really not okay things to each other, like on a regular basis, and are just kind of like,
that happened, moving on.
Yep.
I kind of get it. Okay, for instance, even here, where we do just like lift right out of each other's lives, like queer people don't do that after a breakup, generally speaking, I have found. Not the way that straight people do it here. Because here it's like, you break up and, oh, you're dead to me, all your friends are dead to me, your family's dead to me, every piece of you is dead to me, I'm not even gonna listen to any of the music we listened to together for like 5 years. So, I get that, why people emotionally need to do that after a breakup, but like, I don't think queer people get that luxury because our world is just so much smaller that if we all did that, none of us would know each other. That actually segues nicely into our next little subhead of psychology. Let's start with the backgrounds of the main characters. They definitely do the whole, I was abused, I have bipolar, I have, you know, like, there are reasons why all of these things, and they introduce them right away, but they also kind of dismiss them right away as not the reason any of this happens.
Once when I was 10, my Sunday school teacher took me back to his house. He taught me how to French kiss, among other things.
It cuts to James St. James being like,
for the love of God, no. We are not going to start with Michael Alleg's pathetic childhood. I was molested.
Which at first, like, kind of comes across, like, because, again, having never seen this, the trajectory I thought the entire movie was going to take is like, oh, Michael is the straight-laced one, and he's got a drug addict buddy. His drug addict buddy is going to get him hooked on drugs, and then he's going to go too far, and like, that is almost literally what happens, but the way the story that as I just described it is not how it happens.
No.
Like, at all.
Michael
is just a piece of crap.
Yeah, Michael is like very bipolar and psychotic throughout the whole movie, and his
well, I mean, he uses his bipolar as an excuse to be awful.
Like, oh, I'm just doing this because of this. It's not my fault. Bashes his friend's head in with a hammer.
He also, not on drugs, gets his buddy, like, disowned by his parents by lying up, printing stuff about him in a magazine about how he runs a slave ring and shit. There's a great, like, panic going on about sociopathy, and it is leading, now, if you don't like somebody, you just armchair diagnose them as a sociopath.
Guys, sometimes people are just assholes.
Sometimes there was an asshole, and that's the whole story.
Yeah.
But this does seem to be literal, actual, like, sociopathy. Cannot begin to understand that things are wrong.
Yeah.
And that other people's feelings matter.
This is not a fun film to
No!
watch.
No, I mean, it's
It's fun sometimes. Like there are fun
it
parts.
can be fun to watch, but it is not a fun watch.
It does not feel good to watch this film.
No.
You are watching this person self-destruct and destroy all of his relationships and destroy a lot of the lives of the people around him.
It's right there in the title.
He gets like a little girlfriend at some point. The two of them run off together after he's killed this person. And are like, oh, we're gonna go get sober and go get married and live in the country.
I never got into hard drugs myself, but I did hang out with a lot of people who did. That conversation, that though this is our last time and we're gonna get clean and we're gonna move somewhere else and do what AA calls the geographical cure, where you move somewhere, you get sober, and then you find that, oh, there are drugs here too. There are drugs and alcohol everywhere. You like moving away does not get you sober. But like that conversation is so ridiculously common. And never in my life, not one single time have I met a drug addict. Like not somebody who uses drugs, but like somebody who is straight up addicted to drugs, who wasn't self-medicating something. Like I don't think that exists. I don't know that addicts exist that aren't doing that. What are these people medicating away?
I have never done something just because, oh my god, it looks so cool. But I have done stuff because it's like, okay, this person's feeling this way when they do this, and I'd like to feel that way right now. So I'm gonna give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a Michael in your life?
I've had a couple of Michaels in my life. I've never had, thankfully, at least as far as I know, anybody who's like killed anyone. And I would like it to stay that way. But I have had people who are very self-destructive, who do not care about themselves and therefore don't really care about how their behavior affects the people around them. There's like a big self-worth issue in general, but also especially in the queer community.
You already exist on the margins of society. A lot of people who have never used drugs are straight up like, well, I was told they were bad. And so I've just never stepped outside of that. I'm going to have to put a trigger warning before this because there's no way to talk about this movie.
Trigger warning.
I'll put it earlier. There is no way to talk about this movie without talking about drugs and murder.
This is an intense movie.
It is. It's a pretty damn intense movie. But on the subject of drugs, that does segue into our next subhead, nightlife. So right from the jump, there's this scene where he's teaching him how to entertain, how to be a host, how to take command of a party.
Fabulous. Go once around the room in opposite directions. You go clockwise to my anti-clockwise. Tell all the people how you've lost your friend and how desperate you are to find them. Where can my friend be? Now suddenly, we bump into each other and scream with uncontained joy. Ah, ah, ah!
And you turned to me and you said, that works. Get out of here. Like, that's a real thing? People do that?
I used to be a little Nepo baby socialite that was involved in my local art scene in my hometown. I would do this. Be like, oh my gosh, I'm here with so-and-so. I'm actually looking for them right now. Also, hello, how are you? Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. I've seen you around town before. It works. It absolutely works. Anybody who wants to get famous quickly and get like, you know, some excitement drummed up about whatever fucking thing that you have going on, watch this movie and take notes.
Or just have a lot of drugs.
That too.
I should point out, like, these are all edge cases. Like most people like that I've watched go into this world, like they have a good time, they go, I'm a little too old, and they get out, and that's it. There isn't like a linear path of like, well, you get in and tragedy will happen. Like, that's not really how it works. But like, it does happen though. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Most people are normal.
Pretty much. I super appreciate that it doesn't come across as a morality tale.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't feel like they're ever wagging a finger at me. Like, this isn't like just a really good version of Reefer Madness.
I saw this TikTok the other day that pissed me off of this person who was like, oh my God, my mom knew Michael Alec, and he sent her a letter from jail, and he was so flippant about it. It was like he didn't even care about the murder, and it just made me think about like all of this like club kid stuff and all this nightlife behavior and how that breeds a certain type of person. Girl, you're being homophobic as fuck. Like, go fuck yourself. Shut your goddamn mouth.
You don't know shit.
Stop trying to make this into like some kind of like lesson. Do not speak down on queer art spaces.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Speaking of art, both of the main characters are artists in their own way. James St. James is nominally a writer through the runtime of the movie, but it appears for a long time as if he's just getting like...
How's the novel coming?
Well, I've done another page. But now I think I might have writer's block.
2 pages in 5 years.
I know so many people who are just, one day I'm gonna write that novel. Have you written a short story ever? No. I'm gonna write a whole novel though. And it's like, oh, well, what do you have? Well, I have an idea. And it's like, yeah, ideas are free. That's nothing. You have nothing. Everybody in film school, everybody in any creative school, we all have ideas, and you also need follow through and talent. And if you don't do that, you got jack shit. And it appears through the runtime of this movie, largely right up until the end, that that's who James St. James is. Whereas Michael Alec, he's almost an Andy Warhol kind of performance artist,
Yes.
where like the party itself is the art.
Yes.
Is this party, it is, and then it was.
In fact, in a lot of ways, I would say he's a lot like Andy Warhol.
Yeah. But then in the end, James St. James makes good, and this happened in real life. Like, he wrote a memoir, and it made him famous, and here's the story of my friend killing somebody. Here's our downfall. He does get out and become the artist he always wanted to be. All right, let's move on to the social ramifications. I can't make anything without talking about this. I guested on somebody's podcast once and they wanted to talk about The Karate Kid, and I was like, this is a movie all about classism, and that's all I wanted to talk about. They were like, that's not what the movie's about, though. It's about karate. And I was like, not to me, it isn't! So I can't watch anything without seeing it through that lens. I am, in fact, an obnoxious social justice warrior. But I was watching this, and I think we were like 20 minutes into the movie before I realized I found out that this was a true story. That changed my opinion of all the things it was doing quite a bit. Media portrayals do matter. Let me see if I can boil this down to its essence so I'm not as long-winded about this as I am about every other fucking thing. It's not that you watched Wile E. Coyote as a kid and thought to drop an anvil on somebody, because that is the argument I hear all the time. I grew up on Looney Tunes. I never dropped an anvil on anybody. Uh-huh. But you did know what a coyote and a roadrunner were. The things we consume do in fact inform our opinions about things and the facts that we know. This was a lot of people's first queer movie, because gay cinema wasn't huge until it's still not. Gay cinema still isn't, said the person on the board of a nonprofit all about gay cinema. Is like if we were lousy with this kind of thing, our org wouldn't need to exist. It's still pretty rare. But in the 90s, it was even rarer. It was like we were just getting to the point that you could have a gay side character and they were always a joke. They were always the gay best friend doing the stereotypical gay best friend voice, going, oh, girlfriend, oh. And that was basically it. So this being a lot of people's first queer movie, and it being all about like violent drug addict murderers and horrible selfish people, can't have not done any damage. But even my ridiculous social justice warrior ass finds it to be perfectly fine because of the way it's all presented. At no point is it like this is all because they're queer. It's just kind of unfortunate that what Hollywood was doing back then, and this wasn't even Hollywood, this was, super indie film. I mean, you can tell but by the way it looks, obviously. It's shot on mini DV, we'll get to that in a minute. But I appreciated that kind of presence of mind on behalf of the filmmakers. It's just unfortunate that in the 90s, at the time, there was so little queer cinema that a lot of people's first, gay film would have been this.
You had Boys Don't Cry and Party Monster.
Yep. It was the stereotypical trans tragedy that ends in the way all those stories still kind of end in film. And, you had some like Velvet Goldmine and, reaching back, you got Rocky Horror Picture Show and all kinds of like cool shit in the 70s, but like, you know, the 80s was the era of
The 80s was the end of,
de-gayifying movies and TV.
the 80s was the end of it's okay to be gay
Yeah.
for the time being.
On to the technical aspects. This movie was shot on mini DV in the late 90s or early 2000s. It is lit pretty much like shit a lot of the time, though not all of the time. It seems like the people making this movie got better at making movies the longer they were shooting, which does tend to happen. Even if you're all good at what you do going in, you all learn to become a team over like the first 2 weeks. So everything you shoot in those first 2 weeks isn't nearly as good as everything you shoot afterwards, generally speaking. It sounds like crap.
I want you to teach me how to be fabulous.
It doesn't appear they did any ADR ever. It's all just like whatever we could get with the boom mic or the on-camera like shotgun mic, and that's it. And none of that matters. It's what if student film with B-list actors, and none of that matters because it's amazing. So the way that it all hangs together works great. Like, yeah, it's technically limited by its format. When I say it's lit like shit, I don't mean it isn't lit interestingly. Definitely lit interestingly. And the fact that so many people love this movie and that's never brought up is a testament to the fact that, like, if you just make a good story and it's in focus and it doesn't sound like total ass, nobody pays attention to any of that crap. Nobody but people like me. Nobody but film students who are like, that's an interesting choice they made. You know, like everybody else is just like, well, yeah, the guy did thing and I'm following the guy doing the thing. And they don't think about it.
Scradla.
It was shot very, very cheaply, though anything shot in New York is kind of expensive. It seems like they did a lot of guerrilla shooting where they just didn't get permits, a lot of back alleys and whatnot. But like they would have had to get a lot of permits and that would have been pretty expensive. And Macaulay Culkin, I'm sure, worked for scale at the time. And
But also,
Seth Green wasn't really a name yet.
Just to be clear, we are pulling this straight out of our assholes. We have no idea what they paid for and what they didn't. I'm just speculating.
It's true. Okay, final thoughts. What is your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, I think, is the beginning of the movie, where they're just like,
Come. We'll take our tea in the bedroom. So, notice anything different?
The flies?
these guys really are just peas in a pod.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, is my favorite. What about you?
So there's a scene where Michael is about to bring everybody in their weird outfits out on stage, and they're like about to do a routine, and he's the only one who knows it. They don't even know that they're doing it, and he winds up just kind of shouting things out of a bullhorn that clearly he had choreographed ahead of time but didn't tell anybody else about. And it's very tense and uncomfortable in a way that I relate to in a big bad way, just from being a performer my whole life and having stage fright, having people go, "You'll be fine." It's like, no, I won't be fine. I need to prep. I need to know the material. I need to know the script. You can't just shove me out there and hope for the best. We watch him do so many worse things in this movie, but that's the one that hit closest to home for me. All right, least favorite scene and why?
Michael and his boss and his little girlfriend are all just chilling in this hotel room and getting fucking high as shit. I really don't like that scene. I feel like it's just like really dreary and overwhelming. I'm not saying it's not effective. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, ugh. Like, it's just like overwhelming and stressful to watch.
It is. That scene is too real. Like,
Yeah.
if you've never been in the room with somebody who just ran out of drugs,
Yeah.
it's tense. It's...
Yeah. Where are my drugs? Where are my drugs? Give them to me. Here's the mirror. Like, it's done well. It's just not my favorite.
No, it's hard to watch. I'd say hard to watch is a very good reason for it to be your least favorite, too.
Yeah.
So as for my least favorite scene, there is a moment, just one, throughout the entire movie, and I love this as a filmmaker I love it. You need it. You have to have it. As a person, I hate it. I wish it wasn't in the movie. And that's there's just one moment where Michael, we are alone with Michael as everything has gone wrong, and he just for the first and only time in the movie gets to live with himself, and he doesn't look happy about it. He's just kind of sad. And it humanizes him a lot in a way that I hate. I do appreciate that it only happened once, but I almost feel like the film would be better if it wasn't there. If he was just like Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, he's not really a character, he's just something that happens to everybody else. And they're the real characters in the movie. He's just the disaster in the disaster movie. He's the Twister from Twisters. He's something blowing through their lives and fucking them up. From a filmmaking perspective, from a writing perspective, from a director's perspective, should be there. But I just still wish it wasn't. So that's Party Monster. I don't know that we've done it justice, but we sure did talk about it for a long time. Up next, we've got an interview with board president Lindy Boustet. Take it, past Jolene.
Please welcome our guest, filmmaker, film educator, and newly elected board president of $3 Bill Cinema, Lindy Boustet. Hi, Lindy.
Hello. How you doing?
How the heck are you?
Good. It's, it's a weekend. I mean, I don't know even how to answer that question anymore in this world,
know, right?
But, I'm good right now. It's,
What was it all the ads were saying for a while? In these uncertain times. It's like,
yeah.
if our advertising is reiterating that things are screwed up.
Things are a little wonky. Yeah. The world is a little crazy right now. And I am fine. I have a lot of privilege. I admit that. And I'm still here fighting the good fight. So we're all good.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So let's begin with the obvious question. How did you wind up with $3 Bill?
Well, I've been a filmmaker in Seattle. Chris and I have been filmmakers in Seattle since we moved to Seattle as young budding film graduates in 2004. So
Chris is Lindy's husband for all those.
And we own
wondering.
We own First Sight Productions together, make films together. And I was kind of a late budding queer coming into my sexuality because growing up, for me, it was always told that your sexuality, you had to choose a lane. Bisexuality really didn't exist. It was a transition phase. And so I always kind of had thoughts, about myself and about what my sexuality was. But then I met a cute boy in college. And so I thought I made my choice. And it wasn't until Anna Paquin kind of did some interviews and Rachel Wood and kind of said some things that made me reconsider that. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to choose. I didn't have to make a choice. And just because I married this guy, that doesn't mean that I don't get to be what I want to be. So that's how I came to $3 Bill Cinema. So kind of in that rediscovering myself and rediscovering that part of myself. I have a very supportive partner who I process my world. We process our world through our art. And I started making movies about queer women. And so we started making little short films that featured queer love stories. And we started playing them at $3 Bill Cinema. So that's how I came to kind of be in the $3 Bill Cinema family, was as a filmmaker. And having my films play in the festival. So I started with my journey becoming in that fold as a content creator and falling in love with the film festival that way.
I'm almost certainly going to bring up Brides to Be during a later question in this interview because something struck me that I'll talk about in a minute. Hello, Noodle.
Pet number one.
Yes, we have pet sighting number one.
Yeah.
And because of the way that we are recording this, I can't do much editing in post. So we might have to jump cut through some stuff, and I think all of our film aficionados will just forgive us.
Yes, we have fur babies. It's okay.
Yes, we do.
Acknowledge that. Yes.
All right, next up. And this is where Brides to Be is going to come up. Your favorite queer film is Kiss Me, or With Every Heartbeat, depending on the country of release, and I am dying to know why. I watched the movie in anticipation of this interview because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
And
good.
there is so much to love there. It's not that I'm dying to know why do you like this movie. It's why do you love this movie? And it's a fairly meat and potatoes story, but everything that makes it great is jazz. It's the stuff between the notes. It's everything between the beats is perfect. It's extremely well shot, extremely well edited. And that actually did strike me, is that when I was watching it, the first thing I noticed is I was like, this looks like Lindy's work. Did Lindy's DP shoot this?
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Well, if those who know my last name and have had any inklings with Scandinavia will know my last name is Scandinavian. I married a Swedish person, a Swedish man. So obviously, Kiss Me is a Scandinavian film. I have a love affair with Scandinavian culture, so there's that already that made me interested in this movie. So when that movie came out, this was about that time that I was like trying to figure out myself and my feelings and who I was, on that deeper meaning. And that movie just really, art for me, and what I love about film and why I feel that queer film especially and representation matters, and why as a filmmaker I am so about making sure that we are thinking about representation all the time in the art that we create, is that I know the power that it has in my own life. And so I saw that film, and it helped me so much in understanding and feeling like I was seeing a version of myself represented on the screen, and someone who was struggling with things I felt like I was struggling with. And so Scandinavian cinema, it has just a tone about it. It has such a voice, a mood. I mean, when you live in Scandinavia, you're half the year you're in the dark, half the year you're in the light. I mean, there's a toughness about living in that part of the world, and I think it oozes through the art that they create. And I feel like that film just really oozes that. They I feel like do grief really well. They do love really well. They do those, and they have this low simmer. They don't nothing's over the top and melodramatic. It's just this burning low
and
simmer.
it's almost dread.
Yeah.
Permeating the film. Now,
Yes.
We're analyzing a whole other film earlier in the podcast that by the time we reach this interview, our viewers will have already watched, and this isn't that, so we can't go super in depth. But basically, the beats of this story are forbidden love. It is somebody discovering their own queerness at a very inconvenient time when they're about to get married, and everything that results. And I am a sucker for a movie about people reaching that point of romantic and sexual inevitability. I connect with this person so much that damn the consequences, it's going to happen. And neither, one of us or both of us, or they take turns in this movie, doesn't want this to be happening.
Right.
But it's gonna. And and so that low simmer of that is what sets it off, is we as viewers are so caught onto that instantly, and that's what I loved about it.
Yes. Well, and as you saw, we drew so much inspiration from it in our work as well. It definitely spoke to us as artists. It's something that we strive to do in the way that we cinematically speak. And so when we were creating Brides to Be, it was one of those films that was in our lookbook as to how we wanted Brides to Be to feel. And Brides to Be kind of had a different type of dread kind of going through that film because it's a paranormal thriller. So yeah, absolutely, it was very much one of those films that inspired a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And yeah, the point I'm making here is it looks like you were influenced, not like you just, went, oh, I'm going to the look of my movie store and this is the one I'm buying.
Well, that's the thing, as filmmakers, we're influenced all the time.
Of course
right?
we are.
There's yeah, that's, we're pulling from influences all over the place, and there's no recreating the wheel. There's just putting things in new packaging. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, how many of us have tried to sneak a Spielberg oneer into something at one point or another?
Right. And as we should. Like, I mean, that's an aspiring thing to do. So yeah.
Yeah. And there was our first jump cut. Hopefully, there was a jump cut. So, as mentioned, you were just elected president of the board and will be taking us in some new directions. And while I realize you can't spill the beans about absolutely everything, what is your vision for $3 Bill Cinema going forward?
Yeah, I joined the board a couple of years ago because, we know the pandemic, arts organizations, things have been rough, right? And I saw an opportunity to come on, help an organization that I care so deeply about, like a lot of people care so deeply about. I mean, queer cinema is super important, as we know now more than ever. Spaces for our queer family and coming around, celebrating around cinema and media are really vital. So I came on the board. I want to help $3 Bill continue to thrive. For we're celebrating our 30th year as an organization. I want to continue to let it thrive for another 30 years beyond. So when Telvid, who has been shepherding us through this really tough time, Telvid Devlet, has been our board president through the pandemic. He got us out of some debt, helped us get back onto solid ground. And I'm so lucky to be taking over from someone who's put us in a good position. And I really want to figure out, what does $3 Bill Cinema mean now? Times have changed. 1996 was a very different time. There are some of us who are old enough that remember what 1996 was. For me, I was 16 years old. It was, my burgeoning love of cinema, and especially melodramatic romance movies at the time. I loved nothing more than being in a dark theater crying my eyeballs out. And that was a time where there was no real place to see queer cinema other than a film festival, put on by $3 Bill Cinema. Times have changed. And so I think that $3 Bill Cinema should change with those times. And so what do we need to be now for our queer community and our queer family? And so we really want to, as an organization, figure out what the answer is. And we don't have the answer to that yet. So it's really about us as a board going out, having conversations with our family, figuring out where the needs are, where we can bring cinema into healing, to strengthening, to rebuilding, to doing all the things that we know cinema can do, and how we can, as a board and organization, use cinema, queer cinema, to do those things. So that's a vague answer to kind of show where we're thinking and where we're going. But in the meantime, this year we really want to celebrate 30 years of being this organization, 20 years of having translations. I mean, we're the only trans film festival around, right? And 20 years of that's huge. And so we really want to take that time to celebrate these milestones. And so we're coming together. We're having a joint film festival, the Queer and Trans Film Festival, this July 10th through 12th. And we're going to do something a little unique, and we're going to go back. We're going to go back into the vaults. We're going to look back at these last 30 and these last 20 years, and we're going to see, and we're going to bring back some of those favorite films. Kind of like maybe Kiss Me. Maybe we might bring that back, some of the favorite films that we've played at the festival these past years. Let's bring them back. Let's come together in a theater. Let's share the laughs, share the tears, share the joy. And celebrate this huge milestone. And then as a community, let's go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are some, our festivals are going to be a little different this year as we kind of rebuild and restructure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's just the thing, right? We want to make sure that we continue to be, as an organization, we continue to be solvent, in festivals. And it takes money, it takes resources, it takes venues. We know that venues are kind of tricky right now in Seattle, having space for film festivals and making it so that film festivals stay solvent. So we really want to be mindful about that. We learned a lot last year. And so that's why we're going to do something a little different and bringing the two film festivals together, keeping it a little bit smaller, because we really are, as a board, really trying to be like staying in the black. No more going in the red, everybody. Like that was our past. This is our future. So.
Plus, there's only so long you could be in crisis mode before people
Right.
stop caring.
Exactly. Well, I mean,
So
there's
let's-
a lot of crisis right now. We need to be focusing. We need to be putting our focus where our focus is needed. And there's a lot of places where our focus is needed. And we want to make sure that we're here to support, not be hopefully another place where focus is needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a little inside baseball, a little in the weeds. But we are going to shrink just a bit so that we can grow more later.
Yes, exactly.
But the nice part about the way we're doing it is that nobody who cares about us will notice.
Yeah.
Like I love the way that we have put this year together so that, you know, we're still getting all our stuff in.
Yeah. We still want to do all the fun stuff. We still want to have fun. We're trying to do it strategically, smartly, wisely, and find a way to bring more people into the fold, and find a way to be stronger, bigger, and better. So I hope everybody was going to come out and join us this summer, July 10th through 12th. We're going to have our joint festival, the Queer and Trans Film Festival, at the Seattle Broadway Performance Hall and Erickson Theater on Capitol Hill. It's going to be a great time.
Thank you, Lindy. And for Lindy's personal work, you can find that at youtube.com/Chris and Lindy. That's youtube.com/KRISANDLINDY. Nearly all of Lindy and Chris's films are up on that channel, and they are fantastic. Check them out.
Well, thank you. I hope so. It's we've had a few million people also enjoy them. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Lindy. It's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to. I'm going to try to get to every board member in these interviews in the Meet the Board section of this video podcast, and it felt only fitting to start with the board president. So, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Happy to be the first guinea pig. Love it. Yes.
Have a good one, Lindy.
You too. Thanks, Jolene.
Bye.
Thank you, Jolene. Bigger thank you to Lindy. Much appreciated. Thank you for being here. Thank you for telling everybody what's coming up and giving us your thoughts.
We're here to let you know if the Babadook really is a queer icon. I think that should be our outro.
Okay.
Like for everything.
Okay.
Because like for the while, the Babadook was like under LGBTQ, like
Was it?
on Netflix, like accidentally, and it was just there forever. Like it was like listed as an LGBTQ movie. It's not.
No, not at all. It's about mental illness in a big bad way. It's about postpartum depression.
No, but it's like it was
in general.
no, but it was accidentally listed as an LGBTQ movie and under LGBTQ. And I think it'd be really funny if we just like ended all of our podcasts being like, we're here to let you know if the Babadook really was gay.
If you want to send your questions to us, that is podcast at $3billcinema.org. THREEDOLLARCINEMACI. Wait. $3billcinema.org.
Go here.
I can spell things. Okay, first question. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
If you were both the age of James and Oleg in New York City in the 90s, do you think you would have been club kids?
I would have been a club kid.
You were already a club kid.
Yeah.
I think here's what I would have done. I would have dipped my toe into the pool because I would know that there were other queer people there. And then I would have seen all the things that they like and don't like. And I would have bounced pretty quickly. Yeah. But I would have stuck around just long enough to have enough stories to tell about it for the rest of my life. So I would have maybe done it for like a year. You know, a year of like every third weekend I would go do a thing, and then I could pretend for the rest of my life that, yeah, I was a club kid. I was totally a club kid.
I would have been a club kid, and then I would have pivoted after like 3 or 4 years of doing that to getting into like really weird, esoteric, like erotic art films, probably foreign, and then I probably would have gone on to do like bigger things and then gotten bored.
I could see that.
And gone on to make music.
Yep. Easily. Yeah, I could see you, you know, I stayed in until it got boring and then I got out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up. Before we found out he sucks, what was your favorite Marilyn Manson song?
He's in the movie. We just cut out the part where he talked about it.
I like the Nobodies.
I don't know the Nobodies. Which one's that?
It goes, we're the nobodies, wanna be somebody.
And we just got copyright claims.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to go with Dope Show.
Dope Show's pretty good.
Yeah, was that the first one where he was wearing that like rubber bodysuit?
Marilyn Manson's always been like really gender fucky.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Which made me very uncomfortable as a young person for reasons I couldn't put into words.
Marilyn Manson is why I like T-girls.
I
I'm a chaser. I'm just kidding.
just don't chase him. He's a monster.
No.
But I think that music video was the first time that I was like, I hated Marilyn Manson. Because when he came out, like, when he turned out to be a monster, I was like, yeah, that's not surprising to me. He always had that vibe to me the whole time. Like, when he showed up on the scene, I was like, so you're just Trent Reznor, but you suck.
Also, that's a lie. I like T-girls because of Black Butler and Oran High School Host Club.
I like T-girls because they're amazing. It's a bit selfish of me to say that, but yeah. I don't really have one for this, so I'll try to answer first because you're by far gonna have the better answer. What is your most off-the-wall nightlife experience?
You've done things.
I have done things. It's not that I've done nothing. It's just that, like, when you compare my experiences to other people's, they're kind of lacking. Like,
Then just share.
all right. It's gonna sound like I'm just bragging. And I don't, that's not the spirit in which this was meant. But for like, I was a straight-laced, like, Catholic kid. And then suddenly in my 20s, I on my 21st birthday, I did karaoke. I'd been thinking about it for years because I was a musical theater kid. And I had no chance to perform from the day I graduated until the day I turned 21. So I always wanted to do karaoke. I became a karaoke host, like my birthday's in May. And by September of me turning 21, so June, July, August, like 3.5 months later, I was a karaoke host. But in those 3 months, before I was myself a karaoke host, I was just going to karaoke almost every night of the week. Like every night I could find one, and I could still drink like a monster and nothing would go wrong because I was, young. I was also lacking in confidence. And so I had way more confidence on stage than off. I slept my way basically through Seattle's karaoke bar scene. I found no happiness there, actually. That was how I discovered that, like, no amount of sex is actually going to make me like myself. That has to come from me. So I did a lot of drinking, I had a lot of sex, and I sang a lot of songs. That's about it. That's not really off the wall. I think that's just discovering yourself in your 20s.
That's just having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's fair.
How about you?
When I lived in Los Angeles, SFX
Let's
stuff.
start that over because you're like 90% by volume.
Okay.
Okay.
When I lived in Los Angeles, I worked with a friend of mine who was involved in special effects makeup, and we got a gig where we got to body paint this stripper girl who then invited us to go out and go to this crazy super exclusive party in the hills. And
Hollywood Hills?
Yes, and we went to this mansion in the middle of nowhere.
As one
kinda,
does.
like the kind of place that's like huge and owned by like a super mega ridiculously rich person that probably has like dead people buried in the backyard. And she got to dance and eat fire, and I got to staple money to her forehead.
Okay. I've seen pro wrestlers do that. I've not seen an exotic dancer do that. Is that what they're still called? Am I aging myself? Like I think that was the term in the 90s. It was like, I'm not a stripper, I'm an exotic dancer. And then that became a joke.
I think exotic dancer is fine.
Okay. It's sex work, and sex work is real work.
Mm-hmm.
If we just quit shitting on it, then it would be fine to call them strippers because there would be no stigma behind being a stripper.
She was pretty cool.
Right on. Well, that's our show. I have no idea how any of this is going to cut together, if at all, but hopefully we're not terrible. We'll see. In the meantime, you can find us at $3billcinema.org. That is $3billcinema.org. You can find our upcoming events, information about the org. You can learn how to volunteer if you want to volunteer, and we always need volunteers. $3 Bill Cinema's Queer and Trans Film Festival will take place at the Broadway Performance Hall July 10th to July 12th here in 2025. I like that they called it Queer and Trans Film Festival because I've shortened that, and this is not what the org is calling it, but in my head I've been calling it Cutie Fest. We're all cuties. Yeah.
Guess what? Money.
Yeah.
So this is how many we need. There's a 5 here and 4 zeros here. It'd be really cool if we had even more. But we need to get to that point first. You can donate here, here, and here.
You can also, once again, find us on Insta, Facebook, and TikTok at $3 Bill Cinema with 3 spelled out, and Blue Sky and YouTube, $3 Bill Cinema with the number 3. Set up your podcatcher, whatever you use for that. Subscribe to this. Subscribe on YouTube. And if that doesn't work, just roll down the window and yell about us really loudly.
Or just put this on your playlist for when you go to sleep and play it a whole bunch of times so that we can get ad revenue.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to tell people to do that, but it does help the algorithm. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Neither one of us thought of an intro or an outro.
Whatever.
We could just end this really awkwardly. Do you want to just like have an awkward pause?
Let's look at each other.
All right. And scene.